know what we're going to talk about?
Codependency.
Or relationship addiction.
Okay.
However you want to look at it.
Real life for real families. Hurts, habits, and hang-ups happen in every family.
Jerry and I are here with tools to help you trust God, clean house, and tell the truth to ramp up the joy in your family.
You have what it takes.
It's time to become sober on purpose
For His purpose.
What do you see happening when I really get twitchy in my codependence? What are the actions that happen?
Can you define twitchy, and can you define what are the actions, please?
What is happening when my codependence really flares up? What do you see happening?
I see an overall tension with the other members of the family that just kind of breeds pushback, opposition, people trying to maintain their boundaries as you want to get what you need done in a immediate fashion.
So what are the actual actions that I do? What are some things, if somebody is looking at themselves, what are some things that you see from the outside?
From the outside, I mean, oftentimes this happens when you've been gone for a while and you just come in the door and you kind of, I'm not sure, but my guess is you have an expectation of the way things should look and the way things should be and the activities that should be happening. And sometimes you can be really kind of overtly happy about it, but it comes off as disingenuous. Other times you can be pretty disappointed. There's always tends to be a volume associated with it, whether it be happy or down or disappointed. And it immediately transitions into, okay, let's start getting these things done. And that would be on the good side, or on the bad side, it would be, how come this isn't done? This needs to be done for this reason. This should have been done on this date. Now we're at this date.
Where do you think that fits in the spectrum of love, security, and significance? What am I searching for there?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think you're searching for?
I think it's, I'm not significant enough for you to have listened to me before I left, and I don't feel heard. I really get, as I am working through this, I really get back to that scenario of, if I stop speaking, nobody knows I'm here. I'm lost.
Well, we've heard it said that if there is no negative feedback, then there might as well, then there is no motivation to do anything anyway. So I think that there has to be some feedback, but ultimately all of this is in an effort to accomplish something. So are we getting the results that we're looking for with the actions that we're using to get those results? If we're not, then perhaps it's time to examine the process.
Which I think you've hit the nail on the head with codependency, is we're using someone or some behavior to get some result, but it never gets there. It leaves us hurting people, and it leaves us being angry, and it leaves us in a state of where we have often enabled poor behavior or been a caretaker when the person doesn't need caretaking.
I don't know that we're talking about situations where the person needs caretaking, specifically in this last exchange. We're talking about situations where the codependent needs results and they're not getting them.
No, you're missing the point.
Okay.
I'm the one who needs the caretaking. I'm the one who's asking for you all to help me pick up pieces around the house or do things like that. I'm the one who needs the caretaking. And instead of going about it and just saying flat out, I need the caretaking, I'm coming home and saying, I need this and this and this to happen. And I'm being ignored. I'm not feeling secure. I'm not feeling loved, and I'm not feeling significant.
I guess that makes a lot of sense. That fills in the blank, really. If what we're looking for is a sense of love and a reciprocation of care and effort, then is the way that we're going about that getting us that result? And if not, should we change our method?
So obviously, In our family, that's not getting me the result that I want. I do not feel loved, cared about, or significant, especially when I come home and things are not organized in the way that I've asked them to be organized when I leave. I feel like the drill sergeant. And that's often how codependents feel, that they are managing everything and that nobody is listening. Now, what's the real problem with that? I'm not taking care of me.
Yeah, I think, if we go back to the steps, the idea here is that it's really a relationship between us and our creator that brings us happiness and freedom. If we're requiring outside circumstances to be in a specific way, then we're always chasing something that's fleeting and may not be there to give us the happiness that we think it will.
Codependency, in essence, and a definition, is not about the relationship, because I could behave this way with any relationship, any person. It is only a symptom, just like alcohol for the alcoholic is only a symptom. The relationship is only a symptom for me. And if I could change you, all would be well. It's the if you would just, and we talked about that in several episodes ago. If my family would just pick up or just make the house look the way I wanted, then everything would be okay. And you have a response to that.
Is that the response where I say, if I was to do this, then you could be well, ?
That, and also, if you took care of that, then what would I say?
You would put something else out there that needed to be taken care of.
My family feels like no matter what they do, it will never be enough.
Yeah, I think to some extent there's that sense, I think you've tried to modify that. Like a lot of times you'll say to the children, I just need an hour's worth of work. And that's good and bad because it kind of disincentivizes working efficiently, because if it's going to be an hour, then, and I don't work highly efficient, then the hour's up and we're done, right? But it's good in the way that it kind of puts a deadline on it. Like, look, this isn't going to be one thing after another. This is going to be about an hour's worth of process.
But let's not step away. Let's not step away completely. You're trying to make this happy, and it's not necessarily happy. I am not doing a good job. I am putting my self-worth in whether you guys comply with what I need, rather than, and this is what the codependent does all the time, rather than looking at how I can fulfill my own needs between myself and Christ, or gently hand you back the problem.
Do you remember the Berenstein's Bears book that we read when
I love the Berenstein Bears.
When our kids were young, and
yeah.
The mom just checked out and just was doing her own thing, and she wasn't cleaning up anymore after everybody. And the fruit flies built up in the kitchen off the dirty dishes, and there was dust bunnies everywhere. You remember that one?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mom Berenstein Bear. Did she have a name? I don't remember if she had a name. But Mom Berenstein Bear, I think she was, decided she got involved in painting or patchwork quilt or something. She was doing something very crafty, and she just didn't take time to care for the family anymore. What do you say when you come home and the house is a mess?
No, I remember.
What do you say when you come home and the house is a mess?
I don't know. What do I say?
You say, "Wow, it must have been a good day blogging."
But I think the point of that book was that she had just gotten so frustrated with fighting with the family about pulling their weight and the tidiness of the home that she said, okay, well, let's see what happens when I don't do and see if they enjoy that.
She gave them back the problem that they were not pulling the weight, because wasn't it the problem with bedtime of carrying up all the things, or is that a different?
No, I remember there was the kids didn't pick up their marbles, and she vacuumed them up, and they were like, where's the marbles? And she said, oh, they were on the ground and I vacuumed them up. I'm sure if you go dig through the vacuum, you can find them through the, so you can take that outside and you can dig through it outside. Yeah. And then, there was a number of things like that. But she stopped doing all of the things that they kind of just assumed that she would do. And I think that the book didn't really touch on this, but that must have been more difficult on her to maintain than it was on any of them until the very end, until it really started to add up, and then they start to feel the pain.
It is. And tell them about the great dish experiment that we're doing right now.
Well, right now, Tanya's had the bright idea to kind of designate one plate, one bowl, and one cup for everybody in the family. And if it's not clean, it's not clean. And you can either not eat or eat in a dirty bowl or clean your own bowl.
I have taken away the dishwasher. I haven't physically taken away, but we are no longer using the dishwasher, and we are no longer putting away the dishes as a community because the children were fussing with me about that. And I thought, you know what? Let's give everybody back. My children are 11 and 13. Our children are 11 and 13. Let's give everybody back the responsibility to manage it for themselves. And I think your mom did that with laundry when you were 14, didn't she?
Yeah, she stopped doing my laundry, and I stopped doing my laundry. I don't know that it worked, but it worked for her. I think her result was probably that I would get upset with it enough that I would start to do. And I guess I did. Eventually, I did start to. I never kept up on it the way she did. I'm not so sure that the dish/bowl/cup example is a good example of escaping a codependent pattern, because in a way this is in an effort to control the outcome.
No, it's in an effort to make each person responsible for their own outcome, so that I'm not responsible for making sure that the dishes are clean. And I'm probably going to do it with the laundry too. Everybody now has at least one meal a week that they cook. So now they are beginning to do some meals and things like that, because I was beginning to feel this is a season that I work both outside of the house and inside the house on the blog. I was beginning to feel overwhelmed, and then I was getting more and more angry when I came home. And that's a touchy time for us when I come home. And so I thought, well, let's add some more responsibility to people who are already home, people who are part of the family. I didn't feel like everybody was pulling their weight. I was doing it for them, and that it was not mutually reciprocal on what was happening, is why I thought, let's try this. And again, this is an experiment. It doesn't have to always stay this way, but it is an experiment. And I think it's actually working. We're actually saving time because each person gets up and spends 2 minutes cleaning up their dishes and putting them away.
I'm glad. I think it was definitely thinking outside the box, and rather than trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, it was a way to mix it up. And what's the worst that happens is it doesn't work and you try something else.
Issue with the codependent is they often manage other people rather than managing themselves. I don't have to fuss at the kids for having a bowl or a clean bowl or a dirty bowl or all those types of things. Like Jerry said, if you want a clean bowl, you wash it. If you don't want a clean bowl, you don't wash it. If you want a plate to eat off of, you take care of it. Now, we had a little incident where Elijah walked outside with a plate and he broke it. I'm going to replace that plate. That's not a problem to replace it. But now we are not pointing fingers at each other of whose responsibility this is. I am detaching with love and handing you back the responsibility. So that's just a little example of how I'm trying to deal with some of the codependency that's going on in my life, because I don't want my sons to stay weak.
So weak is a tough word when you're talking with three guys. Weak, it triggers me when I hear the word weak. So I don't really like that adjective. What do you mean when you say weak?
So what I'm saying is I want them to be able to care for themselves and know how to do self-care for themselves, and not get into a situation where they either have to hire or they marry or they find somebody to do the things that I know they can do for themselves, and they can do for themselves proficiently. There are plenty of young men that get sent to college who can't cook and can't clean and don't know how to do these things. At least for our sons, I want them to know how to do it. Now, whether they choose to do it or not is up to them.
All right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So more like capable or resourceful, or having, I want my sons to have the tools that they need to be successful. And I find that this great dish experiment is one of the ways that I might be able to empower them to be self-sufficient.
Which is why you're spending all the time teaching them how to change the oil and how to work on the dirt bikes and how to have some capability mechanically. You've got one son that's not terribly interested in that, but I'm sure you will convince him how to change his oil. The same thing goes for domestic work. They may never do domestic work, but you're a professional chef. I mean, you could certainly take care of yourself cooking.
I was a professional chef. I am no longer a professional chef.
Part of this is developing, and this is what we're going to talk about next time, the interdependence, so that their relationships and how they choose to participate in their relationships does not depend on being a counter or a codependent, but depends on interdependence, that they can do skills for themselves and that they can also manage their feelings.
But interdependence, right? And I'm asking here, that was more along the lines of being able to engage in a relationship healthily, right?
Yes, that's the healthy way to do it. And the episode before this, episode 16, we talked about counterdependence and codependence, which are two opposite ends of the scale, and then interdependence falls in the middle. So being weak, I think for me means, do you have the skills to do it and the ability to learn to do it? Also, do you have the emotional stability to do these things? Because what their response to me is, when I come home like a mad woman going, we need to do this and this and this, one gets angry and the other one gets compliant.
You did really good coming in today, by the way. Maybe everything was the way you wanted to see it, but
I was really, really hungry.
You did really well.
Well, I picked up the phone, I called you, and you consented to help before I even got home. And I told you very clearly that I was hungry and tired, and we weren't going to be home till almost 7 o'clock. Could you have the table set by the time I get in?
And I peeled myself off.
Worked together to make that happen for the whole family.
I was snuggling with the boxer, and I managed to peel myself off the couch. He was very upset, but I made it happen.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
So we're going to continue with codependency for a couple more episodes. We'd love to hear your questions.
Well, thanks for joining us as we dug a little deeper into our personal lives and examined the dynamics of a codependent, interdependent, and counterdependent, their roles in a relationship. That, I don't know if you heard that creaking, but that was the boxer who was clearly counterdependent and
counterdependent or avoidant. He's a codependent. This dog sleeps with us. He sleeps on top of us. If he's not sleeping with somebody, he's scratching outside the door. This is our codependent dog.
Or inside or under the table while we're eating, or he's pretty highly dependent. That's
absolutely right. So where can you find us?
You can find us at thejoyousfamily.com, our Facebook page, The Joyous Family, of course, on this YouTube, or no, wait, what is this? Our podcast.
This is and it switched from iTunes to Apple Podcasts. We've been saying it wrong. So find us on Apple Podcasts. We are still looking for those 30 by the end of this month.
That's why we didn't get our 30, is because you were saying Apple as opposed to iTunes.
It is Apple Podcasts,
you were
not
saying
iTunes. So go to Apple Podcasts. Go scroll down, look for the reviews. Give us a review. We really need them.
And we'll read them live. If I'll tell you what, you want to hear your review read live on the next podcast, put it on there. We'll read them live in the outro.
That's right. We'll read all of them. Every single review you put on there, we will commit
good
to
or
reading.
bad.
Good or bad. We will read those reviews. So hop on iTunes and do those reviews for us. We would certainly appreciate it. And we are looking for 30, and we're not close. So if we get another 10 in the next week, we might actually make our goal.
Awesome.
All right. Nice to see you. Talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Do all those things.
Bye.